Welcome to Your Story Isn't Over, a podcast about hope in Jesus. Here's our host, pastor and author, Kyle Dunn.
Welcome to the podcast, Chris Jones. Thanks very much for spending some time with us today.
Hey, thank you so much.
You are a Murfreesboro resident, and I'd love to hear more of your story, a husband, a dad, and tell everybody a little bit about what you do for your day job.
Sure. So I work for Optum, which is a subdivision of the United Health Group. So I'm the area vice president of the medical network sales team. We connect the insurance companies with the providers, the hospitals, and such.
So you're not having to necessarily interact with consumers as much as you are the organizations.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm business to business, so we're working directly with the companies themselves. And when you go to the doctor's office and you give them their insurance card, anybody's logo that's on that card, that's who I'm talking to.
Gotcha. Cool. So tell me about early life. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Lawrenceburg, Tennessee.
Okay.
So just south of here, right on the border of Tennessee and Alabama.
Okay.
So grew up there. So I am the youngest of three. So so learned how to take care of myself a little bit growing up. So and it's three boys. So we had a fun household.
What's Lawrenceburg like? Is it a big town, small town?
Lawrenceburg is a small town. So the number of red lights definitely grew over the years while I was there, but there were not that many growing up. You could count them on both hands easily.
Yeah.
So nothing like Murfreesboro today by any means.
You definitely know it's a small town when you're counting stoplights.
Exactly.
From our time in Texas, it was, do you have a Dairy Queen? And how many stoplights do you have? This was your move toward being an official city or something like that.
And around here, did you have a Walmart? And for a long time, we didn't.
There you go. Yeah. How far did you have to go for a movie house or any of those kind of things? So.
Exactly.
What kind of things were you into as a kid?
So I was into sports. So that was anything that was in season. That was what I did.
Now, were you guys just into just goofing off in the summers when you weren't playing sports, or were you playing games together, or what were you doing? Was there any mischief? That's where we're headed.
Oh yeah. So we definitely, we had pickup games of anything and everything, from or riding our bikes over neighborhoods where there was construction and making ramps out of wood or piles of dirt, and just trying to get into anything, but exploring as much as we could. Maybe going down a gully when it's just rained.
Okay.
And kind of surfing the the water there. Nice. Would not recommend that to my own kids anymore, obviously. But that was really stupid back then. But hey, it was fun. But yeah, just really getting out, dirt clod fights. Those were always fun. But yeah.
Were you playing sports for school or for Little League or both, or
all of the above?
Yeah.
So I was always in, like I said, baseball, basketball, or kind of the starting ones.
Okay.
I couldn't play football until I was in fifth grade. That was my mom's rule.
Okay.
So that. Did that growing up. Once fifth grade happened, Mom was still very worried about me playing football. But I broke a kid's collarbone, and she was like, "Well, I think he can probably handle himself."
He can handle himself. Okay.
So that, not that it was good that I broke his collarbone, but at least I was kind of dishing it out rather than taking it.
Yeah. Well, which was your favorite sport, and which was your sport you were best at?
Favorite was football and football.
Okay, that's cool.
So, I was not good at basketball at all. I just really didn't like that much. Plus, I was a ball hog, so that at an early age I was kind of a ball hog, so that didn't really go over well. But with baseball, I was a decent player. I was in All-Stars and all of that. I played through 17 So kept playing baseball through into high school. Played a year of high school baseball.
Okay.
But
what was the position in baseball?
So I was a shortstop, pitcher, and catcher. So those were my main ones. So I was kind of a big shortstop.
Okay.
But I could kind of move laterally pretty well. So
Sure.
So I was at least able to catch some balls here and there.
Yeah. You could turn two when you had to.
Exactly.
So 3 boys in your household. Where did you fall in that lineup?
I was last, so I'm the baby.
All right. How did that play out at home with mom and dad?
Well, I got away with a few things
Sure.
that definitely my older brothers didn't. And I was about a 5-year difference between me and my next older brother.
Okay.
So we had a little distance between us, and they were kind of about 2 years apart.
Yeah.
So I was definitely the baby in that sense. So I was always the tag along.
Yeah.
But kind of got beat up a little. No, I wouldn't say beat up. We wrestled. So that was
boys.
It was boys. Exactly.
It was boys and brothers.
So they didn't take it easy on me, and that was okay.
Yeah. So thinking back maybe on family life, 3 brothers, household, that kind of thing, what are a couple of memories that maybe stand out from kind of what your household was like?
I'd say probably the kind of sticking with the wrestling thing. When my brothers went away for college, whenever they would come back home, we had a pretty large kind of living room.
Yeah.
And they would move all the furniture out to the sides, and then they would wrestle to see who was the kind of the leader of the pack.
Right.
And that was always fun to kind of is more of a battle royale than anything after that. But that was always fun. But then there was also I was the jock of the 3.
Okay.
So both of my brothers were in the band, and Daryl was my oldest brother was French horn, and my brother Kevin was trombone.
Nice.
Both of them played all the way through college, so they got scholarships and all of that as well.
Very cool. What was the relationship like with mom and dad?
Mom and dad, they were very good. So my parents are kind of I would say your typical Baptist Christian parents.
Yeah.
But my mom played the piano for the choir. My dad was a deacon and in the finance pieces because he's a banker as well.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much our life. So it was kind of him. We were there. Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday.
Right.
So that was we were the typical Southern Baptist. We were there when the doors were open.
Church life was a big part of family life. I get it.
Very much so.
When did sort of church life for the family kind of become personal for you, and where did faith become personal for you?
Yeah. So I gave my life to the Lord when I was 8.
Nice.
So very early. So it was. I just had I have a feeling that I was missing something, and just being in church and kind of having that just that general tug.
Right. Yeah.
So I gave my heart to the Lord at that point. Been times over the years where it's like, oh, was I too young? And did I really? And so rededications periodically, but I know without a doubt at that point I did truly accept him at that point. But
such a cool thing to have a heart that's sensitive to God pulling on you and tugging at your heart, at such a young age. Mm-hmm. And then speaking as a church guy, as a pastor, we didn't always do the best job with kids who were younger and helping them along the way, and sometimes they were left with some doubts or some question marks about the validity of those moments. But, the Bible's full of God calling people when they're young and using people when they're young. And that's such a sweet thing that for you, it was at 8 and you just knew God was pulling you toward himself. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
So in high school, you were playing sports.
That I was. So it was definitely football. So that was my one sport at that point. And we had coaches that had been there for a while to begin with, and then towards my senior year, I had a new coach come in, so I had to adjust there. A little rocky here and there.
Okay.
So where came in my junior year, and so we were trying to kind of mesh and get. So he coming as my senior year, he didn't really believe in me as much as I did.
Huh.
So that was a kind of a thing where even afterward, when I was ready to go to college, sending out tapes. I did my own tapes, did my own recruiting kind of efforts, just because that I didn't really get a whole lot of support that I was aware of. If he did anything, I don't know, because everything I got was from efforts that I put in. So that was a piece that was kind of a challenge for me, but one that I enjoyed, quite frankly, because I like kind of challenges in general. But
sure.
I started Fellowship of Christian Athletes, or doing Fellowship of Christian Athletes back in in middle school.
Okay.
But then became the huddle leader or whatever vice president, whatever.
Okay.
Back then, my junior and senior year, I was a president of FCA my senior year.
That's great.
Along with the Interact Club, so that's the Rotary version of the high school. Service club. So that was another piece of what I was doing as well. So I was kind of going in with them. Yeah.
Man, with all the sports and church and FCA and maybe a class or two every once in a while, you had a lot going on.
Just a couple. I stayed busy. That was my way of making. That was our way of. I never really, quote unquote, got in trouble. Mainly because I didn't have a chance to get in trouble. But then I was a little different from everybody else as well. So I had a group of kids that I grew up with. We were really close, and then high school, it kind of did a split,
right?
Because there was one specific time that I truly remember. All of us were at one of my friends' house. We had just played a football game, finished up, and we went in the house, and they were going to get into his parents' kind of liquor cabinet,
right?
And so I said no and walked into another room, and while they did it, and that was kind of actually I felt the split right at that moment. So where we were kind of on different paths. So that was kind of an interesting piece. So that was kind of that. I don't remember even when it was, but 12 to 14, somewhere in there. But it was kind of I can still remember that as kind of one of those times, and we've not been that close since. So I was, I wouldn't say I was popular. I mean, I was, but I didn't feel popular, I guess you could say. But I mean, so I was definitely there, and so Christian Athlete of the Year and some of those pieces as well.
Wow.
So that was some of the things that I got to experience in high school, but that just had a split.
Yeah. So that's what I was going to follow up with. So after there was kind of this split with the friend group there, did you feel on your own, or you still had some people that you
100%?
Okay.
So that was actually, I would say there was a point there where I would say as a kind of a middle schooler, because that was kind of around that time that I kind of had I would call it a youthful depression.
Wow.
So period where I just felt kind of alone.
Okay.
So there wasn't places to go, and then it kept going where I was also younger than some of my classmates because of I have an October birthday.
Okay.
So I went in early. So some of them are already driving. And I'm still sitting at home without a car and not driving anywhere either. So that was kind of that another time of just feeling left out.
Was there an awareness that your faith gave you some strength through that, or youth group or church, any of those things? Were they helpful in those moments?
That was our our church youth group wasn't all that great.
Okay.
So it was pretty cliquey as well, as a lot of kind of church
Right.
youth
Right.
groups
That happens.
are.
Yeah.
And being a small town, kind of, I didn't feel like there was really a place for me in that sense. So even in the youth group, that just wasn't folks that I just hung out with or wanted to be around either.
Right. So your phrase, a youthful depression, what kind of lifted you out of that? What kind of made the clouds part and get brighter?
And really, is God just kind of putting. So I've always had, verses that just kind of settled in with me.
Yeah.
And forever, it's been Psalm 23:4.
Okay.
So, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil because you're with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And that's just, no matter where I'm at, I feel him kind of guiding me where I'm going.
That's great.
And protecting me from different areas. So, and I think that's a lot of what I find is, I find a lot of protection.
Yeah.
And I think even back then he was protecting me.
I think that's powerful for people who may be going through their own sense of mild depression or youthful depression. Just an awareness that God's presence will often lift us up as we feel and we're aware of his protection and the way that he just touches our hearts, brings some peace or some comfort, whatever that looks like, because it's not always like a big moment or an event that lifts you out of it. It's just God being faithful again and again and again. Mm-hmm. That's cool to hear that, as at an early age you were sensitive to God's work, and that's what carried you through some difficult seasons of high school as well. Was the opportunity to move on from high school kind of a good part of this too, to sort of start over, to start a new chapter?
Oh yeah, it was good. So I, along kind of back to the recruiting piece, I ended up walking on at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga.
Nice.
So that was one of the really the only place that offered for me to come play, so I went there. And
what was your position there?
So I was a defensive tackle.
Okay.
So I went from the outside in, I guess you could say. So I started off defensive end and kind of worked my way to the nose guard, but always defensive line. So I was always the guy. When I went, I made sure that I was going to get seen. And I was always the first one in line. I made sure that the effort that I put was always going to get noticed.
Right, out hustling the other guys
exactly.
and stuff.
So I made sure I knew the plays, made sure I knew everything that was going on. So that first year was really, really hard because all the effort that I put in and all this, and then the first game comes up, back then they posted a dress out list.
Yeah.
And looking down the list, name wasn't on it. I was like, okay. So I knew I made the team, but I really wasn't on the team because I wasn't dressing out.
Okay.
So that was, man. So that was that way for the first 3 games. And then come the 4th game, I was on the list. But my coach said, all right, Chris, if I turn to you and I tell you to go in, you got to promise me what you'll do is say, are you sure, coach? Because I don't want to put you in and mess up your red shirt. So there was one time where he did that. So he was like, Chris, get in there. Are you sure? No. Okay. so we were losing at that game, and he was kind of frustrated with the guy in front of me, but he was like, yeah, no.
You're going to hold on to that red shirt
hold
here.
On. But that spring, I actually earned my scholarship. So
that's awesome.
So coach pulled me into the office, told me I was getting a scholarship, and so that was a pretty happy day at that point. And I knew I'd at least done it. I made it through kind of the spring workouts and all of that, and so we were good.
That's incredible.
So that grew. So I was technically a 4-year letterman.
Okay.
So I played quite a bit, and then moving on. So I ended up starting my sophomore, junior year, and senior year.
Okay.
And was a captain my senior year. So that was fun.
So what would you say to somebody listening today who's maybe in a similar circumstance of they've made the team, but they're not getting the opportunity to dress out yet, or maybe in their work, they're not getting the opportunity, or they're not being trusted with the response. What would you say to them about, continuing to press on and keep working?
Whatever position they put you in, do it the best that you possibly can.
Yeah.
And so for that first bit, I was on the, actually those first few weeks that I was talking about, I was actually on the scout team.
Okay.
So scout team being, I'm running the other team's plays that we're about to play. And so I was there. Now back then I was 5'11", 225. So kind of small, especially for defensive line, even back then.
Right.
In the season at this point and running those plays, I was in front of two seniors. One guy, he was our right tackle and left guard. Both of them, gosh, he was massive. Both of them easy over 300 pounds.
Wow.
And just one guy was built. So Ricky Bray, he was incredible. But and Big C was the other guy. So
okay.
And for me, I was giving it everything I could.
Yeah.
And they're trying to make it through practice.
Yeah.
And they're just going through, and so I'm going full speed. They're going about half speed, and they're getting mad at me. It's like, dude, chill out. We cannot. No, stop. And so then finally they decided they had enough. So both of them double team me, pick me up, slam me in the ground, and they're like, all right. And so then it's like, lay off, dude. I was like, okay. So, but afterward, they're like, sorry about that. We just got mad. I was like, dude, no, I'm here to make you better. So, whatever, I'm here to make sure that you're doing good on Saturday. So, do whatever you need to. It's all good. So that gave a little bit of respect, I think, in some ways.
Sure.
Kind of learned a little bit myself, but at the same time, that also gave a little bit more, showing that effort. So even when I'm running somebody else's team's plays, I'm still going to do it as good as I possibly can. Yeah, and that I think helped me all the way through it.
Working to get your spot on the dress out list and everything is really in the spirit of what this podcast is about. The story isn't over. You keep working and you keep going. And I almost hear in the phrasing what you're saying there is stay ready. Like when that opportunity comes, just be ready.
Absolutely.
To step into that moment when you have that opportunity along the way.
Be prepared. So, and always prepare yourself for when you get in that you can do it.
Yeah. So in high school, FCA was a part of your story. Were you still involved with that in college somewhat?
I was. So my second year there, I actually was part of starting the FCA back up at Chattanooga.
It had been kind of gone for a little bit.
Gone dormant for a while. So we had one of my coaches there was a kind of a sponsor of it.
Nice.
And so I was elected president and kind of stayed that way for 4 years. And I'm probably should have given it up at one point, but just so that it could grow more. So I don't think it was good for me to be the president for that long, but it did continue to grow, and it was so we kept it going, and it's still going today.
That's
so
awesome.
it was nice to. I've actually looked in their own Instagram and kind of get to see their meetings happening and some of the things that they're doing. So that's been fun to really. Get to see that that's still going.
Yeah. Little connection to that. That's
right.
awesome.
And that, athletes continue to get impacted, even in college and keep growing. So that was, going to conferences was a whole lot of fun, and just getting to know other athletes as well. And then that continued into adulthood as well.
Okay.
So even So with Sharon and I doing some of our events, one thing I was looking for was how to make running a little more impactful. Or have more of a purpose.
Yeah.
And so I had located FCA Endurance.
Okay.
So that was adults doing FCA, but representing FCA at endurance events.
Okay.
So whether it was walking or running, say 5Ks, marathons, half marathons, triathlons, whatever. So that way I was a part of kind of representing Christ and really going and sharing Christ with others and just being helpful for others along the way and giving encouragement and all of that. And kind of their logo is, "Why do you race?" And or their slogan, that is. So that was one of the areas that really spoke to me. I'm here to serve others and to help people to along the way, and that kind of made actually the events a lot easier. Because then, if I'm encouraging somebody else, it's hard to focus on my own pain that I'm going through. Yeah. So it's a whole lot more fun doing that. But also, just give out Bibles and do put tattoos on folks, and just sharing. And there were other FCA teams that we'd meet up at events. So that was always a kind of an interesting way of kind of having that. And I actually became the huddle leader here in Tennessee as well. So I tried to create
the whole state?
With the whole state, actually.
Man.
I tried to create a huddle here in Murfreesboro. Had a little bit of interest, but we just really didn't kick off. I don't think I did a great job at it, quite frankly. But I ended up being kind of more of the welcome party for anybody in the state that wanted to be a part of FCA Endurance. So that was, I'd kind of get them and try and get them involved in races, and then kind of trying to meet up with other folks as those races were happening, just to try and coordinate a little bit as much as possible.
Chris, that's a powerful legacy you have of saying yes to God in some different places, to be determined with your sports in college, but also help to kind of breathe new life into the FCA program at UT Chat, and then with the endurance program. That's incredible, because so many people's lives were changed through those ministries and continue to be changed, and you've got a little part in that history and in that legacy, and that's awesome. That's a beautiful, and I hope that's satisfying to you to have partnered with God in some of those ways. That's very cool.
Yeah, it's meant a lot to me over the years, definitely.
That's great. What else was a highlight of college? Did you pick a major at that point? Football was life, but what else?
Well, I went in for physical therapy.
Okay.
So physical therapy was what I wanted to do. So going through, rolling along, but I think I had a 3.2 in my major, which I turned into psychology. So back then it was, you needed a 4.0, or a really high 3s to be able to get in physical therapy school. So I had to adjust.
Okay.
So I moved into psychology from there. Folks just kept, I was the advice guy. So people would come to me and just talk to me. And so I'd just listen to them, see what was going on, kind of give whatever advice that think it could give them, or maybe have them think about doing something a little different way. But I was I was always the designated driver or the guy that just took care of folks. So keeping people out of bonfires. So that was
you were the steady, dependable person that people came to.
Exactly. So that was really what I was for them. So doing that is like, and I had several psychology courses. So it was like, I like that. So it sounds like, felt like that was kind of my move into kind of the major of psychology.
Okay.
So that kind of transitioned me into that major.
And is that what you finished with? Was a degree in psychology?
I finished with a degree in psychology. Then I went, had a year still trying to get into physical therapy school.
Okay.
So I was trying to still kind of press there. I worked a year outside after that, but it's like, yeah, it's just not going to happen. So I ended up getting a master's in clinical psychology here at Middle Tennessee State University.
Okay.
So here in Murfreesboro. So moved in and got a clinical psychology degree, and I was going to be a psychological examiner.
Okay.
So and that's kind of where I moved from there into here. So that was fun.
So you're not currently a psychological examiner.
I am not.
So talk about the path from the degree and the plans to, sort of a little bit into the career world you're into now.
So when I got out, so after my graduation, so me and another friend, we did our internships with a prison in Nashville. So my first job was actually as a psychological examiner at a maximum security prison in Nashville. So at
like 22 or something like this? How old are you?
I was about 25.
Okay.
I think
so you got your master's at this.
So
okay.
yeah, I went on and got my master's.
That's still young to show up at a maximum security prison.
Oh yeah. So I was still baby faced. So that was fun. A little different walking into your place of work and a big old door slamming behind you.
Wow.
So this being a maximum security prison, this is where they held all the death row inmates, any of the violent criminals. They also had kind of the kind of medium and low security guys as well. But our job was to, one, do intakes on anybody that came in in death row inmates. If they came in, we did all of their intakes. And then also meeting with all different prisoners to make sure that doing just checks on kind of the maximum security ones, that they weren't going crazy, basically. So that was an interesting time.
So that's got to be interesting to be a young person and you're getting into the world of psychology and you're there at a maximum security prison in the Nashville area. Do you have any stories that stick out from that time period?
Yeah. So my friend that I went to college with, both of us were psychological examiners there. And so we were both young.
Yeah.
This was during the time that back in the day, it was the Captain D's killer was convicted. And
a serial killer in Nashville.
Absolutely.
I have not heard any of these stories.
And so he was convicted. And what we did the intakes for anybody that came in, especially on the death row side.
Wow.
We would do their intake where we'd have an interview as well as do the psychological testing and some of the others. So for anybody that came in, we would flip-flop of who got to do it. It was his turn, so I was like, oh. So he was gracious enough to split it. He's like, I'll do the interview and you can do the testing. So I got to at least do the testing part, and it was very interesting to kind of just be in the room with.
Was it creepy or intimidating?
It wasn't creepy necessarily. Well, I take that back. It was very creepy. But it was just the, being in that environment, and with knowing what he did and kind of seeing, doing the results and all of those. It was just kind of it was really an interesting time to just be in a room of somebody of that, of that nature.
Yeah, somebody on that dark road.
Absolutely.
Oh my, yeah, that qualifies as an interesting story from that period of time.
Yeah, the other part of those is that, part of my job was doing counseling with inmates, and you wouldn't expect it, but I was actually doing counseling with death row inmates.
Wow.
Of how to, and sitting kind of just like we are right now, not a glass wall in between us, but sitting, we'll say desk to desk with a kind of a guy on death row, and trying to deal with everyday life as he's being in prison.
Do you have any memories and I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but if you don't, that's cool. Do you have any memories of how sort of those experiences connected with your faith in Christ?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is that I saw really a lot of guys making bad choices. And it's those times when you are looking at, do I do this or do I do that? And, when you have Christ in your heart, it's which voice are you going to listen to? Okay. And I think that's a piece that I definitely saw. But, with a lot of them, they made a lot of bad choices. Or they just did not have the support or the family structure that I grew up in, or that really they had, growing up themselves, that they were, a lot of them, they grew up by themselves. So,
did you encounter any of them that were remorseful or changing their ways?
Yeah, there were definitely some that were in that mode. Others, it was just trying to get to a different place. Yeah. So part of my job was to see whether or not they were going to the maximum security doors, talking to them, doing evaluations of their current mental status. And, some would try to act crazy just so that they could get a different location to spend the night in. Okay. And so we'd have to decide which ones, were real, which ones weren't. Right. And so I got a lot of experience figuring out what was a real issue and what wasn't.
Wow. And that was an internship?
No, that was actually a job.
That was the job. Okay.
That was my job.
How long were you in that job?
I was there for a year.
Okay.
Decided, my wife, Sharon and I were married.
Okay.
At that point,
we'll talk about her in just a few minutes. But
at that point, it was, not really going. I think I've pretty well topped out. Kind of what there's not a whole lot of growth in income coming up. So where I'm at now to where we want to be or need to be based on kind of what we're wanting to start a family. Right. So probably don't need to do this. I had another friend that was at Bell South who was doing sales there, and I'd already done a little bit of sales, then went over to Bell South, and then that started my sales career. Okay.
Wow. Do you have do you miss the psychology world? As you look back, I know it's been a minute, but do you miss it, or you're like, that was just that chapter, and I'm where I'm supposed to be?
I still use it.
Okay.
So I still use the psychology in a lot of ways with because as a manager, kind of how to deal with people, how to kind of structure a sale, how to deal with folks that are that we're selling to. Yeah. So that continues to be a part of what I do. Yeah. Now, in some ways, I look back and like, maybe I should have kept doing at least some of it. But at the same time, there wasn't enough time in a day to be able to do everything any more than what I was doing.
I know your kids and, my kids are not too much older than yours, but we've both probably said to them at some point, and, what you major in isn't necessarily what you'll end up doing, for the rest of your life. And we say that to young adults all the time. Mm-hmm. God's going to lead you. God's going to be faithful. God's going to take care of you. And sometimes young people, they stress a little bit too much on that major.
Definitely.
And then here you are, a few years later, and God's taken care of you and met those needs for starting that family and all those things. And so that's cool. Let's talk about your relationship with the lovely Sharon, and how did you guys meet?
So we met in high school. Okay. So there was she was originally from Arkansas, moved into Georgia, and then junior year she moved in. She and her family moved into Lawrenceburg. Okay. So I met her junior year. So and we were in similar circles. So and so I got to know her that way. So we were good friends. I always thought she was cute, and tried to even asked her to prom. She said no.
Oh, man.
Well, she had a boyfriend at the time, so I always have to say I cut in.
But to be fair, it worked out. It worked.
I did win at the end. So, but we had one class together, and that was marriage and family living.
Okay.
So, which was she wasn't even supposed to be in that class.
Okay.
So it was so she was definitely much more. She was a much better student than I was by all means. So the class that she was in didn't make because it was kind of a calculus class or something else. It was something that not a lot of folks in Lawrenceburg wanted to take. So she had to pick something else, and so we got to at least have that time together, and we were happily able to announce we were not ready for marriage at that point.
Okay.
So that was good.
So y'all were friends at that point. You weren't dating her in high school. When did that change?
So so I through college I'd ask her out.
Was she at UT Chat as well?
She was at UT Knoxville.
Okay.
And I was at UT Chattanooga. And so we were still both living in Lawrenceburg, and over the summers I would ask her out, and she'd always say no. And I've got to feed my horses, and so I was like, well, yeah, that's her way of saying I got to wash my hair. And so finally I was like, well, I'll come help, because my grandparents had horses and all that. So I'll come help.
Nice move, by the way. Call her bluff.
There we go. She's like, well, if you're coming, you're going to have to work. I was like, yeah, that's fine. So ended up, of course, I could scoop poop just as well as anybody else.
That's awesome.
So that kind of started it from there. But we still didn't go out.
Okay.
So my senior year, she was getting ready for a UT volunteer football game, and she had the TV on in the background, and she saw me in the middle of the field flipping a coin for the start of a game, because I was a captain of the team at that point. And she saw me, and that night, after we had actually won that game, and she called me, and I asked her to our next game, which was homecoming, and she came down, and from there we started dating.
That's amazing. So let's dig into this a little bit. Was it the uniform? Is that what it got it? Was this? She's like, this guy's going somewhere. Was it the coin flipping skills? What was the?
Maybe so. I always call tails, so that was the thing. But no, it's a. I think it was just kind of checking in. And
that's cool.
So from there, it was a fun time from there.
Well, as another guy who understands what it's like to be in the friend zone for a while, it doesn't matter why. We don't care why. We're just happy that they've moved in the better direction along the way. Exactly. So you guys were dating for a while then, toward the end of college?
Yep. So senior year. So we ended up dating through the kind of our last semester, senior year, and then moving on. So I pretty much knew kind of that Christmas that probably going to. She knows that she knew it a lot earlier, and she always says she knew it a lot earlier that we were getting married than I did. But I knew fairly early that she had the values that I was looking for, and she met kind of all the criterias, shall we say, that I was looking for in a woman, and so that was so knew she was the right one for me.
That's great. So what year did you guys get married?
So we got married in 96.
Nice.
So we are 28 years right now.
That's awesome. Congrats.
So we've been together for a little while.
That's really good.
That was so we got married just after my first year in grad school.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And you guys have two awesome kids. Tell us about your kids.
Yep. I have two kids. So Patrick and Sarah. So Patrick is 23 now, and Sarah's 21. So Patrick, he graduated from, both my kids graduated or are at University of Tennessee at Knoxville, so neither one of them went my route. I had Sarah for a little while going to Chattanooga, but then she visited Knoxville and was done.
It was lost at that point.
It was lost. So it was the perfect day. So I lost out on that, but that's okay. So she's in the right spot. But Patrick graduated this past May with an aerospace engineering degree. And then Sarah's a junior in business analytics.
That's awesome.
So they've great kids. So they are, parents talk about their kids and just how, this struggle or that struggle, and we didn't have that. They were good kids.
That's great.
Both of them gave their lives early to the Lord as well. So, and Patrick, it was actually from a kids choir that kind of was what kind of brought him in. And then Sarah, just kind of a combination of vacation Bible schools and everything else. But it was,
that's great.
It was something. So, but they've grown up. They have, like I said, they've not been issues whatsoever. They have been great kids. And I think that's just kind of, they've kind of followed the Lord and just kind of been led by him and have trusted him. And that's been something that's good. And,
Some of what you're describing of building those communication pipelines and creating moments to help your kids know they can talk to you about anything. That's just really, really well done. And it's one of the ways we show our kids we love them is that we trust them to be able to hear about anything and talk about anything. And so you guys have done a tremendous job.
Yeah.
You and Sharon, you said 28 years, is that right?
28 years.
Yeah. So what do you guys enjoy doing together? I over the years, I've heard you talk a little bit about some traveling. You guys enjoy doing that?
Yep. So we've always enjoyed, going to the beach has kind of been our thing.
Yeah.
So as a family, that's kind of the place that we've really enjoyed. So going to Destin and that general area has always been our place.
Yeah.
That we've enjoyed doing. We'll also do a lot of exercising over the years. It's kind of been, she did half marathons for years.
Okay.
So where she would, she did the country music marathon a couple of times, and then this other, the Murfreesboro half as well. So she did a lot of that for a while. And that was a piece that we kind of did together. I did it as well. I moved into triathlons because I didn't like just doing one thing and running all the time. But
because the internet is forever, there are some good photos of you running some races out there on the interwebs right now.
There is. Those are some ugly pictures, but it's
okay.
Man,
it's inspiring. Anybody who takes on a triathlon, man, that's for real. That's serious. You know, those three disciplines. Which one came easiest? Which one was hardest for you? Those three.
So. Running, yeah. Of the three disciplines, running was the hardest.
Okay,
because of my size.
Okay,
so because I was growing up as a lifeguard, so swimming was not that hard.
Yeah,
and I've always liked to bike, so those two pieces just came kind of naturally to me. So I didn't mind that at all. But then moving into the run. That's where I struggled. So I just never had the stamina to really go that far fast.
Yeah.
But that was kind of worked on it here and there. But it was, I ended up doing 4 triathlons, I think it was.
Oh my goodness, that's really impressive.
But they were sprints, so they weren't that long.
It doesn't matter. It counts. That's incredible. That's impressive.
But we did that. But the other piece is last few years it's been Disney. So we've enjoyed going to Disney and we got season passes last year that just kind of we had known that we were going to go a couple of times, and so we took advantage of that and got to go by ourselves without the kids, which we found was really fun.
It's a different experience.
It's a different experience, but we also enjoyed with the kids, especially as they we actually gone to Disney when they were like 3 and 5, and then a few years later we did it about every 3 or 4 years. And so each one was very different, but now that they're older, it's actually even more fun because while you're in, you can just have conversations and talk while you're in line and just
you're hanging out, not just trying to make it through a long day with little kids.
Exactly, and trying to make it between the nap. And but yeah, it's a lot different, but a lot more fun.
Do you have like a dream place that you and Sharon would love to go to if you haven't been to yet?
Yep. So we're wanting to go to Ireland. So
okay.
That's kind of a bucket list place that we're looking to do in the next year or so. Hopefully next year. But I'd love to be able to do that.
Very cool.
And because that's somewhere she's always wanted to go. I've never been overseas, nor have the kids.
Okay.
So she went to Europe senior year in high school, but I've never been. So
okay.
So we've been to Aruba and Costa Rica together. The kids have been to Costa Rica. We got to do some work trips through there, so our work reward trips. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So definitely recommend Aruba. That was really
okay.
fun. But we want to go back. Want to do the kind of see some other areas, and Ireland's definitely one of those.
Cool. Some of what we talk about here in this podcast is some of the ways life throws a curve and takes twists and turns. And, part of your journey in your married life has been that you guys have found yourselves encountering some struggles with Sharon's health a little bit. Can you talk just a little bit about maybe what that's been like?
Yeah, early on. So I say early on. So we were, I think Sarah was probably 6 or so. I'm trying to think it because it's been about 10, 12 years that Sharon was actually working, doing a race. So she had been to Disney and doing in support. She was working for Special Kids at the time.
Okay.
And part of their events was doing fundraising and sending folks to different events, and they were doing one of the Disney races. So she was at a Disney weekend, and when she got home, she started feeling numbness in her feet and kind of just having these, I guess, feeling tight around her midsection, and then just kind of having some panic attacks and things like that, or just feeling like something's really wrong. So we ended up going to the ER and trying to figure out what's happening. And turns out that she was diagnosed with MS.
Wow.
And so she had literally lost the function in her entire right side.
Whoa.
So it's kind of like a stroke. She was walking with a cane and just was not really, that was a really difficult time because that was it was scary for all of us.
Yeah.
From, of course, Sharon definitely went, our first neurologist that we went to was like, yeah, you'll be in a wheelchair by the time you're 40.
Oh, man.
And it was like, wait, what? So that's
things are turned upside down.
That's not supposed to be happening. That wasn't in our plan.
Yeah.
So it was really scary. And we changed neurologists and went. So we went to Vanderbilt. The beautiful thing of being here in the Nashville area, we've got really one of the premier MS clinics in Vanderbilt, and folks drive for everywhere to come there, and it's just a short drive for us. So that was a good thing, but got into treatment and got into that, and her symptoms ended up subsiding. So of course she could actually write and walk and even get back to doing some running as well. But she's got the her version is that it's a relapsing piece, but the beautiful piece is that she's not really had flares at all.
Praise God.
So at this point, over the years, she'll the biggest thing has been fatigue. So which has been a blessing that's all she's had to deal with, because there's a lot of other folks that deal with a whole lot more.
Yeah.
But all of those, she'll periodically have some symptoms here or there, but it's really, so she is doing great.
Okay.
And that has been kind of one thing that we've just had to, those first few years, it was, a little scary. What's it going to be like? The first few scans, are there more lesions or anything that's going to end up impacting her even further? But she just kept getting one after another, good results where, the lesions were actually going away, which they weren't supposed to. And then, no new ones coming up. So that was a really, just a God thing that it was not progressing at all. And at this point, now her doctor is saying, you're in the top 5%. So, you're probably not going to, if you have anything major, I don't expect you to, because of you've gone this long without episodes.
Sure. That's great prognosis for right now.
That's been huge.
Talk to me about
be able to do that.
Yeah. Praise God for all that. Talk to me a little bit about as a husband, when that diagnosis comes and some things are kind of turned upside down, and your early reports were, bad news, not good news in terms of where it was going to progress and all those things. What was that like, trying to be the support and kind of being the good husband in those moments?
That was hard. Because I was scared just like she was. So, didn't want to lose my wife, or, that, she had a lot of plans that she had of her own that, I wanted to make sure that she could do as well. But, and then also trying to, keep the family going as well.
That's right.
Because that was kind of one of the scary times for him. So Patrick kind of, as boys do, kind of clam up and don't really talk about it. Daughter was a little more vocal. She was worried that she was going to die. And that was, those were pieces that, in a lot of ways helped her faith. But it was just really trying to kind of take care of the kids, trying to take care of her, and making sure that she's okay. That was definitely for me, a struggle.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So, and certainly didn't do things right all the time by any means, and did some stupid stuff myself. So, but it was just really being able to, trying my best to be there for her, and to make sure her needs were met and that she could, have the space to heal, and know that things were being taken care of as much as possible around with the kids and everybody else to just keep things rolling.
Way to go, sticking in and being there right by her side and trying to hold things together while she was recuperating and adjusting, and that's not a small thing, to try to say things that are helpful and do things that are helpful and all that stuff, and you're battling your own concerns and fears and anxieties through all of that. And God was kind and gracious to you guys that the worst fears of how that disease would progress didn't happen for you guys. It went a different direction. Was there any other specific ways in addition to just that God showed himself to be faithful?
Well, it was in the support of our friends.
It's awesome.
So our church was, our church family was just a huge help.
That's great.
So, providing all kinds of, support for us, meals and and everything, but just making sure the kids were in places they would help kind of
So
get
good.
them going as well, and and really just making sure that that we were taken care of as well.
Yeah.
So that was super helpful, and having that support as well, and just being connected there was good.
Yeah.
And kind of having, godly folks kind of walking alongside us as well.
Yeah. God shows up in creative ways, and sometimes he shows up in a burning bush, and sometimes he shows up as good friends who help your kids get home from practice, or a casserole and a hug.
Exactly.
And just a reminder that you're not alone.
Yeah.
And it's a powerful thing. It's a powerful thing.
Yeah, we definitely needed to know that we weren't alone at that point. And, we weren't wanting to kind of throw it out there for everybody to know and all of that, but it was kind of the how to, our close friends were the ones that we really leaned heavily on and did.
Well, thanks for sharing that about how you and Sharon have kind of walked through a difficult chapter of your story already. And here we are in a different kind of chapter with your own health journey. Talk a little bit about what's going on.
Yeah. So I've had a few health journeys along the way myself that Sharon's been just incredible on. I had kind of training for one of those triathlons, wrecked a bike and separated a shoulder. So I ended up having shoulder surgery there. And so she was definitely a big part of that. And then 2014, I had a growth on my liver that basically the size of a deflated football, that I wasn't supposed to be able to feel. So the doctor, when I went in, was like, "Well, how do you know it's there?" I was like, "Well, I can feel it. It's on your liver. You can't feel your liver." And he was like, "Well, lean back. Let's see." Well, dang, there it is. So I see why. So it ended up, I had went into surgery, he took it out, took part of my liver out, and found out that it was a growth that ended up being cancerous inside, but it hadn't spread or done anything, so it was contained. So
Okay.
I was surgically cured at that point. So
that was 10 years ago.
That was 10 years ago. So go a few years later. So this earlier this year, I was starting to have just being kind of getting dizzy when I would kind of go walk the dogs and clean off their feet and stand up and kind of be dizzy. And I felt that before, but it kind of was a lot more. And also just some shakiness and some others. And it was just kind of weird. And I was in the midst of changing doctors at this point. And I was having a physical coming up. So I was like, got checked out. Well, it turns out I was anemic. So then the doctor was like, "Well, guys don't get anemic unless they're bleeding inside. So we need to go figure it out." So I ended up having, an endoscopy that showed that I had a growth in my stomach, or a tumor in my stomach. So this was, so we had just gotten back from Disney, and had that diagnosis, and next day went for a CAT scan, that confirmed it. And then 2 weeks later, I'm in the oncologist office, talking treatment plans and what we needed to do. And a week later, I'm in chemo.
And this is just a few months ago.
This is just a few months ago. This was May of this year, so in 2024.
Yeah.
So I've now had 8 rounds of chemotherapy.
Wow.
And so beautiful thing is it's not been as bad as what the experience that I expected.
Okay.
which was feeling sick and all of that. It was just mainly fatigue has been my thing, but I hadn't even missed a day of work from it. The beauty of working from home has been good because I could just take my computer along with me.
Sure.
And while I'm hooked up to the IVs, I can just keep working and do my job and have some really interesting conversations or video calls in there. At least the good thing of backgrounds, and not having that showing up. But yeah, I've had that, and so over the light at the beginning, we had, of course, the CAT scan to show the tumor. Then I've also had now 3 PET scans, so which shows more of the activity that it's producing. And so this last time it's shown that it's gone smaller. So,
Praise God.
The tumor's been reactive to the treatment, which is good. So my doctor has always said, our goal is to get it out. So chemotherapy can only do it for so far, but after that, we got to go get it.
Yeah.
So now I'm getting to. I've seen a surgeon once just to kind of see, am I a candidate at all? So now, so we've had after my last PET scan, actually. In 2 days, I go back to see the surgeon to kind of put together a plan of actually going in and taking my entire stomach out.
Wow. That is not a small statement.
No.
Not
at all.
2 days from this recording to find out what that plan is. And you and I've talked before, you kind of expect them to act soon. In the next couple of weeks, probably even to get that done.
Yeah, we're expecting it once we go in, it'll probably move quickly thereafter.
Yeah.
So I'll have something that'll hit quickly.
So thank you for sharing where you're going. It's surreal to even throw the word cancer casually on a podcast and talk about it. Nobody can imagine what you guys are going through with this. A different kind of health crisis than even what Sharon had been through, and the removal of your stomach is also the removal of the cancer.
Right.
And so there's this good news that this is possible, and yet it has some life-changing, ramifications that come from it. Mm-hmm. While none of us can understand what it's like to walk in your shoes right now, what would you say, Chris? What's it like to trust God right now with cancer right now?
Yeah. One, everything is just scary. So once we had the diagnosis, both Sharon and I cried because it was like, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness, what have we got going on? But... it's always really for me, I know where I'm going. So it doesn't, I know God's got a plan that, we always, now I'm forgetting the verse, but it's, don't be anxious.
Yeah.
Because I know the plans I have for you.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the, I know He's got it.
Yeah.
And that no matter what, He's got, it doesn't matter what happens, that it's within His plan. And so it's being able to kind of give that over to Him, say, look, Lord willing, I have another day.
Yeah.
And I have a bunch of other days.
Right.
So, but the good thing is that He's pulled it where it looks like we have a path for not having chemo, and that things are at least improving. So I'm seeing kind of him work in my body where the stuff is working. And have the right doctor that giving me the right stuff to be able to make it work.
Yeah.
So, I see his hands all over that. So, and again, we've had fantastic, friends and people kind of jumping right along with us as well. So, which we greatly appreciate. So it's been huge help there.
Yeah.
But, it's just another piece of, where we, what does this look like now? And one, can I get it all? So the good thing is if he sees any other cancer, I'm going to keep my stomach, but that just means I'm on chemo more. And at some point it won't work. So, we'll have to do some more stuff. So try not to be there, but no, without my stomach, like you said, it's a completely life-changing thing. And I think, like I said, it's just, I know God's got it. And I figure, as long as I'm kind of following him, it's going to be fine.
What you're talking about is a level of faith that is, it's something that I want to honor a little bit. I don't want to be casual about it, because this isn't just a small amount of faith. It's to say whatever is next, God's got it, with what you're facing. That's got to be inspiring to some people listening right now who are facing some things, to say, you don't know what's next. You don't know what's around the corner. You don't know what the next chapter is, but you trust God.
Yeah.
And he does know. And, that is a beautiful thing to hold on to that. And as a human, there got to be days when your faith is stronger than other days. But
most definitely.
But to have that thought, you know what, the story isn't over, but whatever God's going to do in the story, however he wants to work in this, you know where you're going. That people who can say, I know where I'm going, if they're having a rough Tuesday is one thing, but when someone is walking with cancer and they've got this kind of a surgery coming up in the next couple of weeks, that's a powerful thing. That's not about what you're able to muster up in yourself, Chris. This is how God is showing his strength in you right now, that this faith is where it is. This is from God. Mm-hmm. And I'm so encouraged to hear that while there are so many things that are unknown,
yeah, a whole lot of things still left unknown,
but you're trusting the Lord,
yeah,
in that.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's kind of like what we've already been talking about. There are kind of pivots in my story along the way that it's just, as long as I'm following him, it's going to work out. And when I don't, things don't go the way I'm planning on, or I take a turn that I wasn't needing to. But I found that, from the decisions of what I made as a youth, and then where I went to the prep that I did for other pieces, I think God just kind of points me in the right direction, and that he's done that faithfully throughout my life. And I find that even now it's, I'm not done yet.
That's right.
So
that's right.
And that he's continuing to show up in every kind of way.
Yeah.
So even in this, it's, we just see him working, and, see him, from the tumors and the not feeling, too bad.
Right.
Those are things that,
with 8 rounds of chemo. Yeah.
So, I'll take that.
Yeah.
So, I can take a little bit of fatigue and be okay. I'm not going to complain about that. But it just, I think it's, I had 2 verses, or really 3, that have always been there.
Yeah.
I had them posted in my locker in college, and it's they've always been there. I said the one in Psalms, but I like Paul just because he was kind of a sports guy.
Yeah.
So that was so I always liked him because like in Philippians 4:13, where I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Yeah.
So that's always been kind of one of my staples. And then in 3:14, going towards the goals that in Christ Jesus.
Yeah. Pressing on.
On. So because I press on towards the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Christ, in Jesus Christ. So that's the piece that is. Those are always things that just kept me going, and even now, those are the ones that I kind of fall back to. They're not very deep in theology, in a way. I guess I feel like that because that's what I gravitated to when I was a kid, and I still do. So it's kind of like, did I really grow up? But at the same time, it's like that. Just they have just hit every time whenever something comes up.
Please don't ever apologize for having those verses as the ones that are keeping your faith going, and the rocks that you're clinging to. Those are there's a reason those are famous and well-known and beloved passages, is because God puts those down in our heart and reminds us of who he is and what he can do. And those verses give us hope, and those verses encourage us to remember the story's not over, not done with me yet. Yep. If I get another day of breath, I'm thanking the Lord, and I can do all things, not because I'm strong, but because he's strong in me. And so
exactly,
there's nothing shallow in that at all. Right now, there are people who have had a similar diagnosis and they have given up. There's folks who've had a similar diagnosis and they are trying to spend their time getting all the world has to offer. And you're saying, I want to see what's next, and we're taking the steps that God leads us to take, and he's been good all this far, and we'll trust him to be good tomorrow.
Yep.
And my friend, we're praying for you and your family and for complete healing in all of this, and we're watching and waiting with you to see how God wants to work through all of this, because there's a plan, and you're about to meet with a surgeon, and if the surgeon says go, that's the plan, and let's go. Let's move toward some getting that stuff out and progress. But I so appreciate you sharing that, man. One of the things that I wanted to ask you about today is, so I want to harp on this again. This is just a few months ago that this has been going on.
Still kind of new.
Yeah. So with that diagnosis and then coming up until now, I know you've been dealing a lot with the health and the medical things, but is there anything that about the way you're living or the way you think about living or think about life that's kind of been awakened through all of this?
Yeah. I'm wanting to make sure that I'm living it as much as possible.
Awesome.
So, we were, told you we were doing Disney. That kind of Disney has been our thing.
Yeah.
And so when we got the diagnosis, we had already had on the books a Disney trip. So the last week in September, and so we kind of was like, do we go? Do we not? Should I cancel it? What's, what do we do? And the doctor's like, you can go. It's not going to, just be careful.
Right.
But, you can go. So, and he says something that, life doesn't stop. So, just, if you end up saying, well, I'll wait until I'm feeling better, or I'll wait until this happens, or I'll wait until that happens, then you're always waiting. So just go in and do it.
Yeah.
So we ended up, it ended up working out, and we had planned it actually perfect. It was in between two therapies, so two of my infusions. So it worked out there, and we had a great time. So
that's awesome.
Sharon came back sick. I didn't. so it's, but no, but we're also, we're looking at now. I'm just wanting to spend as much time as I possibly can with her.
Yeah.
With the kids.
Yeah.
And also, if we've always wanted to do trips. So like, going to Ireland and I want to go back to the beach.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Just doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
And just being a family.
Yeah.
Those are kind of the important things that I want to be a part of.
Yeah.
So, and I want to still be here when, Sarah graduates, Lord willing, both of them get married and have kids. Love to see some grandkids someday, and just be here for them.
Yeah.
But, that's the scary part of all of this is what ifs. So, and those still run in my head. What if this happens? What if that happens? What does this look like? But that's just where I go right back. Okay, he's got it.
Yeah.
So I will continue to trust him, and we keep following through, and then whatever happens will happen. But I'm going to, make sure that I'm doing the next right thing. And the next thing that I should be doing for Sharon, myself, as well as the kids.
Yeah.
Just making sure that we're all where we need to be.
Yeah.
But it's just, I guess, taking life more, like I said, not saying, well, we'll do it later. Well, how can we just go in and do it?
Yeah. Nobody's promised us tomorrow.
Exactly.
It's a beautiful approach to these days you're in right now, that life doesn't stop. And I'm even thinking about in this moment, if somebody's listening to this podcast and you're in something similar, and to keep going, right? To keep living and to keep trusting God, because he's not finished. And there's not a lot of fruitfulness in worrying about what bad news might be around the corner. What if God does something beautiful and powerful around the corner as well? And so trusting him and leaning into your family and doing the things that are on your heart to do and enjoying every day, making the most of the days that you have, which is a biblical concept as well, making the most of every opportunity along the way. I think that's beautiful to have that approach. It is not a small thing. I keep coming back to this, to walk the road you're walking and to say, I'm not sure what's next, but I know he's got it, and I know he's got me.
Yep.
And I know that is something that if you're listening to this today and you're going through something hard, God will always be faithful. It's not just what he does, it's who he is. And I don't know how or when or whatever, but God will always come through. He will not abandon you. He has not brought you this far to leave you behind. And he's creative. He's infinitely powerful, and he can do anything. And so keep hoping in him and trusting in him and calling out to him and waiting to see how he wants to work in all of this. One other thought, Chris, if there's somebody who's going through an illness or a sickness and they're walking this journey, mainly like if they have a friend who's going through a journey like this, what's the best way to support a friend who's going through this?
Yeah, I think the best way is be there.
Yeah.
So, we've we've had dinners with friends, just getting together. That's been just, it's a nice release, just to go laugh with people.
It's great.
And just kind of just talk about what's going on. Not necessarily focusing on what's going on with me, but more, what's just happening in life.
Yeah.
Just sharing life together again. Where I'm just not, in our four walls.
Yeah.
So that's, I think kind of, I would say if as a friend, get them out of there, or, at least come in and be hang out a bit.
Yeah.
But try and get them out, get them to go do something.
Yeah. Don't worry about thinking you have to know the right thing to say, or certainly don't have to talk about the health journey you're on right now. Just kind of be with them and spend time with them, and don't pull back from them.
Right.
Because it's awkward or you don't know what to talk about, but to kind of spend time with them. So that's great.
Yeah. I mean, just because they have a diagnosis doesn't mean that they're not interested in what they were interested before.
Yeah.
It's just a continuation of the friendship that you have. And, it's just a different living life together. Yeah.
That's such good encouragement, because a lot of us, we get kind of a friendship paralysis because it's so overwhelming. And we start to think like, I don't know how to be or what to say or all those things. And you're coming back to just be with us and kind of pull us out of those daily conversations about the next doctor's appointment and all that, and just kind of hang out and do life. So that's really good. That's really good. Chris, anything else you would say to somebody who's walking through something hard right now, who's trying to hold on to the hope that their story's not over?
Yeah, really, it's just trust God. Just let go, because for me, when I said, all right, I can't do anything about this. Found out this was kind of genetics, so it's like, I couldn't have even prevented it. Sometimes just stuff happens. And, when I get down or start kind of thinking the what ifs, and just when I'm like, God's got it.
Yeah.
And, I always think, he already knew this was happening. He knew it a long time ago that this was going to happen, that this was his plan for me to go through this. So, and, that this was going to be the case.
Yeah.
I just didn't know it.
Right.
But that that I'll be traveling through this because this is just how life is going to happen. Once I gave that to him and said, all right, God, you've got this. So I'll follow you wherever you're going to take this. So hopefully it's in a good place.
Right.
Please, Lord. But it's, I think just let him have it.
Yeah.
And, that if we're worried about it, it's just going to make it worse. And that, giving it to him and just being like, wherever I will do what you want me to be able to try and fix it and to get through it and do all the things that I need to treat this thing that you've provided the doctors with.
That's right.
To get there. But I know you've got this, and whatever I can do to be what you want me to, cool, let's go.
And that's so good. And he's with you, right? He's with you every step of this journey, which is so powerful to hold on to. Well, thanks for sharing so much of your story with us and letting us in on just a little bit of what it must be like. We can't at all imagine all these things that you're carrying right now, but it helps us to pray for you. It helps us to remember the Lord is with us and to keep trusting in him, even though we can think about circumstances and details and the what ifs, but to keep coming back to the Lord in all of that. Chris, I'd love to transition us here for a second to the portion of the podcast we call Dicey Questions. And that's where each guest has a chance to roll some dice, and the number on the dice correspond to some questions. So if you would, grab that cup right there, my friend, and give it a good shake, and just out on the table, we'll find out which question you get to answer.
And we have 9.
Number 9. All right. Number 9, here it is. No one's ever had this question before on the podcast, so here we go. What do you wish you had more time to do these days?
Ooh.
I agree.
I think right now everything's centered around family.
Yeah.
So just probably having more time with family.
Yeah.
But really just being able to be with the kids, be with my wife, and just really just take everything in. So I think that's probably it.
Yeah.
Because I think when it comes down to it, that's who you want to be with.
That's right. That's right. That's right. What do you like to do in your free time when you get some?
Oh, when I get some, so Sharon and I, we walk.
Okay.
So we
Walk and talk?
Walk and talk.
Yeah.
So those are our fun times. So we our dates are weird.
Oh, come on.
Our dates are doing everyday life stuff.
Yeah.
It's going to the grocery store and going different places, and where I've never been a great date guy planner. So it's we've had some horrible dates, but we've had some good ones. But it's really the best times are just being with her.
Awesome.
So that's my favorite.
Yeah. And I love that because it doesn't have to have bells and whistles and fancy or expensive or elaborate. It's just that you guys love being together. And Stacy and I can kind of relate to that too, that, some of the meaningful times may not look very impressive to anybody else, but it's just we're with our person, right?
Yeah.
And
my happy place is with her.
Yeah.
So that's the walking. We'll do that. We'll go the Greenway. We'll do some things there, kind of tool around the yard, and try and create things that we don't have to maintain. So, but like I said, just being together and is kind of just the thing that, we enjoy most.
Cool. Is there anything else about your story, your life, anything we didn't get to talk about that you want to talk about today?
We covered a lot.
I believe so, but I always love to give the opportunity to anybody.
Oh, no. I've been blessed throughout my entire life. God's shown up in so many areas that, I just praise him for that. Because I know there's turns and areas that, had I not followed him, then, not sure what would have happened. And I know when I've not followed him, not good things have happened as well.
Right.
So it's a whole lot better to follow. But God's always led me in the right spot. And, sometimes it feels like I'm blowing in the wind and that this is just where I land. But I find that's been just where there's always some blessing that's behind it.
Yeah.
And that wherever I landed, I was there for a purpose.
Yeah.
And so now it's, I get the privilege of leading folks in my job. So that's kind of being there for them, to be a coach for them, to be the best salesperson they can be and do things different. And going to MTSU, helping some sales professionals learn how to be better sales folks.
Okay.
Those are things that have been a lot of fun, to just kind of help others to grow, but to see them excel. I love light bulbs going off in folks' heads.
Yeah.
So that's always been a part of what I've enjoyed. And I think that's part of that psychology part too. But it's really, those are the things that, I've really appreciated, that, no matter where I am, he's there.
Yeah.
And that's just been kind of a joy.
Yeah. And you're not finished.
It's not finished yet.
That's right.
That's for sure.
Well, man, thanks for being a part of the podcast today. I appreciate you being real and sharing your life. I have enjoyed learning about your story, and it's going to be really meaningful to a lot of people. And I would say to those of you listening today that if you're in a season right now of struggle, and if it's difficult, keep holding on. God invites us to ask, to seek, to knock in prayer, because he loves to answer. He loves to lead us. He loves to open for us. He can do anything, and he's always faithful. So keep calling out to him. Keep trusting him, because your story isn't over. And with God, all things are possible. Thanks for being here, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for spending time with us today. We hope you've been encouraged. If things are rough right now, hang on. Your story isn't over. To learn more, visit kyledunn.org.